We're back. T.A. Mahoney, Tales from the Darkside. Man, we got I don't know if I want to call him a weirdo or not. He doesn't fit quite the weirdo, but he definitely fits a friend, a customer, a good guy. And we're going to get some info out of him today. I can guarantee you that. I call him Seltzer. That's how we're going to introduce him. He's a great guy. You've been coming in the store how long?
Oh, gosh. 15, 20 years.
Yeah, long time.
I joke and I say I pay your light bill.
Yeah.
Usually in the summer months when everything's breaking.
When everything starts to break. The first time I met him, I think back, Doug, we always play games around here, and if you hadn't noticed, there's a few shenanigans that go on. We have a good time for sure with customers and employees. And Doug, I remember he came in, you were in uniform, so I'm sure it was right after work or right before work. It wouldn't have been during work.
Couldn't have been during work, right.
One of Tampa's finest here, TPD. How long you been with them?
I've been with TPD 20 years.
20 years, great guy,
I've been a
man.
police officer in total 28 years.
28 years, wow. You don't even look that old.
Well, if I take these off, you could see more of the gray hair.
See more of
and
it.
if I grew a beard, it'd be grayer than yours.
Yeah, I don't know about that.
I don't know if it's from the job.
That's blonde. That ain't gray, that's blonde. But the first time I remember you were in here, Doug kind of walks around the corner and he goes, "Hey, that police officer's asking for you." And I'm thinking, he's asking for me? How many are there? Oh, just him. I go, man, when I was a kid, they'd send 4 or 5 to come get me. Now it's just one?
You're
I don't
old
even
now.
get any respect.
You're not even intimidating anymore.
Yeah. It's like, holy cow, they bring one guy out here. Of course, I didn't know it at the time, but he probably could wrap anybody up and put them in a knot and take them wherever he wanted to. And I bet you can outrun me, too, so it wasn't about that. But we play a lot of games around here, and Doug's one of the biggest game players there is. You've spent some time with him on the water, and give us some history about where you're from, how long you've been fishing, what got you into the kind of fishing you're doing. Let us know something about you.
Well, I turned 49 in 2 weeks, and I'm originally from Dallas, Texas. Texas is my homeland. If you meet Texans, generally they're some of the most proud, and I fit into that. There is truly something almost unique about being from Texas. I was born and raised in Dallas. My dad was a big-time fisherman, hunter. My dad was a big duck hunter. Loved saltwater fishing. I really have never done freshwater fishing other than trying to catch catfish or something. But we would go down to the Texas coast, Port Aransas, Corpus Christi.
Oh, yeah. I've been there.
All up and down the Texas coast. And my dad just got me into fishing, mainly inshore, but we started offshore too. He had a lot of friends that offshore fished, and the fishing down on the Texas coast back then was wide open. I mean, catching speckled trout. I don't even remember what the limit was, but speckled trout and redfish, I mean, it was just wide open. So I fished there. We fished in Venice, Louisiana, and Louisiana.
As a kid, you did?
I did there because
Awesome.
that's where my parents are from. They're from Louisiana. I was born in Texas. I moved to Florida when I was 16. So I've fished all along the coast.
Some good fishing too.
Very good fishing. I mean, I remember going to Venice as a kid. I mean, I'll never forget my dad running in running in on an old Cytex Coden Loran. And I remember telling him,
That'd be scary up
God.
in that river.
Yeah, well, I remember telling him, Dad, you were going the wrong way, because we were going to the darkness and all the lights were the rigs. But I was a kid thinking, no, we need to go to the lights. That's where the city, that's
right.
land. And it was pitch black on land. And I mean, sunken shrimp boats on their side, and I mean, literally to this day, I thank God my dad and I are alive because of some of the stuff.
And I think back to some of the trips I've made, and they're the same way, but I'll tell you something. I went to Louisiana the first time probably 20 years ago, and it was a lot different then than now, and I can't even imagine even going back another 20 on top of that, knowing that you were there, and there wasn't much there.
Wasn't much there. And then later, I know we stayed at Port Eads. I think Port Eads is gone now. They tried to refurbish it, and
Sign's still up,
Yeah.
but I don't know if the port's actually there.
we stayed at Port Eads, sometimes with
Was that
friends.
the only place, the closest place
Absolutely,
to
yeah.
Venice?
Yeah, it was.
So
And
there was no cabins and
No.
condos or nothing to rent?
there
back
may have
then?
been way further up the river, but I didn't know about them. My dad would
Right.
go and we'd pack everything we need, stay at Port Eads and fish, and you know.
Would you
have a
leave
ball.
from there, or would you be?
We would go sometimes from either from Grand Isle to Venice. One time we went from Pensacola, Florida, all the way to Venice. We ran
That's a
all the
good
way
little
across.
run.
It was a run, yeah. My dad had a 27 Ocean Master, and
Wow.
it was a tank.
Beast.
Yeah, it was a tank, and I mean we went through some seas before. I'll never forget my dad telling me to put my life jacket on. But you know, he didn't check the weather. You know, it was just old school.
You didn't have it back then, you know. It was
No smartphones.
Well, and even there, you think about it, I'm sure they got some kind of weather service, but it wasn't like now where you're tuning into Ruskin.
By the time he turned on his VHF and got the weather, we were already out in it. It was too late
Yeah,
anyway. You know?
figure out what you're going to do. What are some of the fish y'all used to catch there?
Well, you know, we were trying to catch tuna. We didn't hardly catch any tuna. We caught wahoo. We caught some small
Any big
blackfin.
wahoo?
I don't remember any giants. I've caught more giants actually here. Now there's giants there, I know,
Yeah.
but we weren't. You know, my dad tried a little bit of everything. He wasn't a pro at you know, we just were out fishing. But we definitely caught wahoo.
Were the
he was
snapper
cobia.
thick, too?
Snapper were thick too. You could go to any rig and snapper fish, and I don't even remember what the limits were. You know, we never overdid it, but it was never a worry.
Cooler full.
Yeah, he was big into cobia. We'd catch cobia. So I would say cobia, snapper, wahoo, whatever wahoo we catch on the troll. You know, I mean, but
Kind of bonus fish.
bonus fish. And then they had this right near Southwest Pass. They had what's called like the mud lumps or something, and we would just tear up the specks and reds there too.
Yeah. That was inside or outside
It was
the river?
just outside. It was.
Yeah.
It was Southwest Pass. I remember it was between South Pass and Southwest Pass, and I bet it's changed dramatically because of all the erosion and stuff. It's probably not even there anymore. But you couldn't throw your.
It still comes up quite a bit there, and about a mile offshore
Yeah.
between those two passes. Of course, that's the one pass is the main ship channel, so they're going to keep that thing dredged pretty good.
Yeah.
And they got jetties, and I'm sure they did back then too. It's where one of the lighthouses are. But you know, it's tricky there, and it's, you know, normally here because there's not a lot of marsh here.
Right.
If we get a lighthouse like Boca Grande,
Yeah. Yeah.
it's going to be right on the coast.
Yeah. Right.
Well, there,
Nothing solid to even put it on.
so it's back in half a mile, and when you're coming in from offshore, it was one of the mistakes one of my buddies almost made one time. He's like, I'm going straight for the lighthouse. We were coming
Yeah,
in at dark.
right.
We stayed out too long, catching too many fish.
We did. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
just kind of easing in. I'm trying to tell him, hey, man, there's jetties out here, and that thing's a quarter mile inside the pass right now. It's not. He goes, yeah, you know, you're right.
Yeah.
I go, you may want to zoom in. And that was, when I first started going, GPS started getting
Yeah.
pretty big. Then, of course, it saved us coming in that river. Things haven't changed much on that terrain. When you look at the charts and
Right.
the way the river flows, some of your passes get washed in. I know they just finished
They just
Tiger
dredged.
Pass.
They dredged one of them recently.
And
too.
South
Pass.
South Pass got dredged.
I'll never forget. There used to be almost a submerged concrete wall at the end of South Pass, and my dad whacked one of our motors on that one time. I don't know if it's still there. I
Yeah,
mean,
they still got a bunch of rocks and
Crazy,
stuff. That was probably
you know?
you really got to watch out there, even inshore when you're running
Oh,
through
yeah.
that marsh, abandoned rigs and pipes and all kinds of
Oh,
stuff.
Yeah, I mean that area truly, the knowledge of the local captains is huge. I mean here, and a lot of other places, you can get a nice chart plotter and run by your chart plotter there.
That's
One
right.
day one day it's silted in, the next day it's not.
Right.
But so then we moved. My parents moved me to Florida. My dad had some business issues, decided to kind of relocate in Florida. Went to Pensacola. Pensacola is a great fishing community. I still have some of my best friends in Pensacola. The red snapper fishery, cobia. That's where cobia really hug the beach.
Right.
And people get up in the tower
Big
boats.
schools.
Big schools. And
Yeah.
we had a blast skipping school. I mean, I mean, me and my buddies wanted to cobia fish, get up in the tower, get you a live eel, and just sight fish them. And I mean, we would.
It's fun.
It was a
Now,
blast.
did they hang around rays up
Rays,
there? Is
yep,
what you're
yep.
looking for? Kind
If
of like
you-
the East Coast.
Yeah, yeah. If you find a big ray, there's going to be cobia on it, unless a boat. I mean, there would be a line of boats. I mean, you run from Pensacola to Destin, and then guys would come back, and you know, some guys would try a little closer to the beach, a little further out. But I mean, sometimes you'd be right off the breakers, you know. But yeah, rays, anything floating, you know, anything that make the cobia.
So what's the biggest cobia you've gotten?
Biggest cobia, it's funny you mentioned sight fishing. The biggest cobia I got was 55. Biggest cobia I ever caught was 70, and it was grouper trolling.
Here?
Yeah. Yep.
Wow.
I caught a 70-pound cobia on a man's stretch 30 grouper trolling.
Out there fishing in my hole, weren't you?
Grouper trolling's one of my. Listen. I may not be that old, but grouper trolling. I feel like I started it. Now everybody's doing it.
Right.
I know I didn't start it. I know Vance and some guys.
Sure.
You know, but I was.
Was that in the bay?
It was no. It was right. It was right. 40 foot. Where I usually go. I usually troll between 30 and 55 foot.
South?
It
Like
was-
south of Egmont?
Yeah, it was. I think it was. I don't know if I was either north or south of the ditch, but it was right out there, either north or south. You know,
And
all those ledge lines.
And that's the same areas. I was working really hard there. To the south is where I went most of the time. But you know what happened is a few years ago, so many people were in the bay hammering those grouper.
Yep.
You just got to get in line. It was something that I really didn't like to do, fish around 10 other boats
Yeah,
and have to
right.
watch out. So I said, shoot, I'll go out there and start messing around. And there's some beautiful bottom in that 35.
Well, see, and I'm mainly, I don't want to say mainly, spear fisherman and dive, and I've dove thousands of spots out there. And there are so many little ledges and rock piles and stuff. And so all I do when I group patrol is I just breadcrumb trail my GPS and I go from one to the other. If it takes a while, or if I've got some extra time, I may troll from one to the other. Sometimes I'll pick up and run to the next little load of area. But I've also found so much area. You know, I see guys sometimes on Facebook or, you know, hey, I need a number. And I'm thinking, you know, and I've given numbers. I've done
Sure.
it because I want people to succeed, especially if they're fishing with kids. But man, it's so easy. Go out there, throw a bait out there, throw a couple of baits out there, and just troll around. And you're going to find ledges. You're going to find stuff that really pays off for you later. And that's what I've done. I mean, I've really become almost a picky fisherman now. I like only certain things. I like chumming mangroves, chumming yellowtail, grouper trolling. I like spearfishing grouper. But I don't really like bottom digging, just going out there and randomly bottom digging.
Catch what we catch. type thing.
Yeah, and undersized red grouper, and I just prefer to do a kind of a specific way.
Right.
You know, and if I don't catch as much, that's fine with me. Now, when I got my kids, I
little
want
different,
a
right?
little different, but yeah,
Just bend the rod.
bend the rod.
You know, there's so much around here to do. That's the greatest thing from all the areas you're talking about. Of course, it's hard to beat the northern Gulf, but right here in Central Florida, to have the variety that we have.
Well,
with-
I agree totally. And I just had one of my buddies down, and we weren't able to go out because it's been blowing so much. But the red snapper fishery in northern Florida is amazingly good. But you know, look at what the limits we're getting. I mean, it's only good for 4 weeks or however
Yeah.
long you can fish them.
right.
But I will say, and the cat's out of the bag, this area's blown up, you know, tremendously, and there's people this is one of the most unbelievable areas to me. That,
Yeah.
I mean, I can go out and just get dinner by spearfishing a short ledge. I mean, there's so much habitat and so many fish available to us. My buddies are like, man, we don't have hogfish up there, and they think I'm crazy. I'm like, yeah, you're grouper fishing in 30 foot of water? I'm like, yeah, I go up to freaking Crystal River. They're grouper fishing in 10 foot of water.
15, yeah, 10, 15.
But this area is one of my favorite areas to fish. It really is. I mean, everywhere I've been, I mean, I think we have it made, to be honest with you.
Yeah, the variety and you know, you can plan an offshore trip, have a little bit of wind, and turn it into a nearshore trip.
Exactly.
Permit. We were talking about it earlier at the front counter there, African pompano. That's something I fished offshore here all my life with my dad, and really learned most of the stuff I have with my dad. And of course, I came in and started doing more inshore probably 30 years ago, really targeting snook. once the pressure built up there, I went back out there. But shoot, African pompano, wahoo.
Oh,
You know, my dad, he's 87 years old, and he's telling me that, you know, he's never caught a wahoo.
Right.
Or never African pompano. And I mean, we've caught them on bottom rigs.
Yep.
And do you think that those fish move like we know the grouper move north and south different years? You can get a lot of gags to the south. It seemed like about 4 or 5 years ago, all of a sudden we were having to run north to get gags.
Right.
Mangoes are real good to the south, but maybe not as good to the north. You know,
Right.
it changes like that. One thing I've noticed big time is mango snapper fishing. I mean, and as many people that are doing it and they're being successful, we're still getting record numbers
Yep.
and big fish.
Yeah, I don't know what it is about mangoes, and it's probably my favorite fish. I mean, I could
Good eating.
I could name so many that I say 1 minute's my favorite, but mangrove snapper, you know, I tell people if mangrove grew to be 150 pounds, I'd be scared to death of them.
Oh, yeah.
Because they're just a ferocious,
Yeah.
fighting, toothy, you know. But yeah, the mangrove fishing's great. It's almost like the more they're pressured, the more they nature tells them to populate. Because I dive a lot, and I've got some ledges. I've dove some areas that are covered in mangrove snapper.
That weren't before?
Yeah, just not as much. Yeah,
Right.
you know, but I'll tell you what, I've learned a lot about mangrove. It's been one of my most specific favorite fisheries. And when they spawn, I've got some mangrove spots that I know I've showed you some big monsters.
Yeah, he shows me pictures and
Yeah.
he shows me the bottom machine, but no number, no invite.
My thumb is usually covering the
Yeah,
picture on the
look
bottom
at
machine.
this.
Well, that's the thing about some of these, man. When I tell Doug, man, I've worked hard on getting these spots, some
Sure.
of them, and it's, I mean, it'll break you down when you see another boat on one of your favorite mangrove spots. And then I think, well, maybe they're not fishing it. I mean, I really fish it. I'm a big chummer, and I have a specific type of chum, and there's some
So
spots.
what do you use for
Well,
chum?
I'll tell you, okay. I've gotten mangroves and yellowtail. They're a little easier, I believe. Yellowtail just get chum drunk and just turn into weirdos. But I've had mangroves from 117 foot of water. I've had their fin out of the surface. I mean, I've literally had them on the surface with old dead sardines, and my secret, which I'm going to give away, is glass minnows. Glass minnows.
You mix them when you
Yeah.
do that?
Yep, I mix it. And the glass minnows, I take handfuls of glass minnows, even if I'm not mixing it with the dead stuff. Take handfuls of glass minnows and throw it in your chum, and you will see that every one of your fish is going to puke up a load of glass minnows. They
love it,
They
huh?
love the glass
Well,
minnows.
you know, yellowtails, that's what they use in the Keys,
In the Keys,
right?
yeah, and that's why I started using it. In the Keys. My buddy was a big Alan was a big yellowtail fisherman. He swore by glass minnows, and then I started using glass minnows, saw how well they worked, and now I use it for mangrove fishing, and the mangroves they just get drunk on them, you know, and.
Sometimes it's that little bit of difference that makes a
It
difference in
is.
catching them bigger fish.
It is, you know, a lot of the spots, some of my favorite mangrove spots, I don't live chum really because I got jacks there, and it turns into just a
Nightmare.
Nightmare.
Yeah.
And I dead chunk and dead chum, and sometimes I do it I just pour the chum to them just to watch them.
Now you're not fishing till you see them.
I'm not fishing until I see them.
Nobody on the boat's
Nobody,
fishing.
and I have to every time, even Doug, and Doug's a good.
Oh,
Doug's a
who's
good.
first one in the water? I
He
guarantee
wants to
you.
be the first one in the water, and I have to tell people, just wait, let them get to in their eating mode, and I can see them. I'll stand up on the stern of my boat, and the second I start seeing them doing their thing and they're following the chum up, I say, okay, let's put a line or two out, you know. And I'm big into. I mean, if I see somebody fishing and their line stops or they're not doing it right, I tell them just stop. Because, I mean, I've some of these big mangroves, I mean, it's not
They
like
won't-
they'll go up to a bait and they'll see it, and when they
Yep.
turn their nose, every other mangrove sees them. It's just like an alarm
I've
goes
seen
off.
it.
And, I mean, I'm trying to catch big 10-pounders,
Right.
and when a 10-pounder turns his nose at your bait, and I'll tell you a story in just a second of one, I was kind of proud of myself, a mangrove story. I went out by myself to my favorite hole. And
Of course, by himself, old selfish.
I checked my boat for GPS
Never
devices.
brings it here for service. I've offered free service for the hubs, rims,
yeah.
but
I constantly grease my hubs. That's another thing. I'm very anal about my hubs. But But the water was crystal clear. It looked like I was fishing in the Keys, 115 foot of water. And I don't know if they were leader shy or just shy,
Right.
but I was having a hard time. I wanted to catch, obviously the limit's 10 in federal waters. I wanted to catch 5, 6 big ones and go home. Well, I had 1 or 2 on the boat, and I mean, I could see them, and they were monsters, but I couldn't catch them. Well, what I started doing was every one of them that threw up, I started gutting them. I took their guts. I emptied their stomach, and in some cases, I actually used a mangrove stomach with the contents of the stomach. I fished it. I free-lined it.
Pow.
Fire. Absolute fire.
Caught him.
Oh,
huh?
caught him. I caught him, and I thought I was actually proud of myself. I said, "Man, I improvised
Figured something
I
out
figured it
there.
out."
Yeah.
And that the way when they start to digest and it gets gray and they throw it up on your boat and it's stinky. Let me tell you what, those other ones love it.
That's the best bait you can get.
And then I wasn't even using my own bait. I mean, it was just
Yeah.
I was actually catching. I was using the chum that they had digested for my new bait. I mean, it worked out. And I won't forget that one because I was proud that I improvised.
You know, I was. It reminds me. I got a mango story for you. I was fished with the ballets, and they probably owned that marina when you were going there.
Yeah.
At Venice, and
Brent and
Brandon.
yeah, Brandon
were
okay.
the sons, and matter of fact, the first time we went there, I asked his dad. He was on the boat, and I said, "What are we going to catch today?" And he goes, "Son, they don't have names for them here. They got horns on them and stuff." And I thought, man, this guy's crazy. And let me tell you, I learned that. But I was on the boat with Brandon Ballet, and I was so proud of myself. I've been going there 18 years. You run the boat. I hang out with my buddies. I start getting on the mango bite, and I'm throwing 8 and 10 pounders straight in the boat. And I'm talking trash, of course. You know, if you're the one putting them in.
Right.
And, man, I'm telling you, I am the mango man.
Yeah, right.
You know, just everything. And Brandon goes, "Mahoney, you think you can catch snapper, don't you?" I said, "Bro, I know I can. Look on the deck.
Yeah.
I've hammered them. They're all green, flipping around." He goes, "You ain't catching the big ones." He goes, "Go back to the corner of this boat and don't fish and just look down." So I'm standing at the back of the boat looking down. I'm 35, 40 foot from the rig. And all of a sudden I see like a stop sign turn.
Yeah.
And you know it's that big orange mango. He goes, "Mahoney, them big ones don't get up there on the pole. They get away from it. They eat the stuff at the bottom." So he goes, "Get your line back here." I went back there 2 times and got
Just destroyed.
done.
Destroyed.
80-pound tarpon rod, lock drag, just snapped. So
They're unbelievable.
the 3rd time I got him in, 34 inches,
Yeah. Monster.
13.8. The record was 14.2.
Louisiana record.
Louisiana
I don't know
record.
what the Florida record
I
is.
bet it's a world record too. I don't know. I hadn't looked it up, but it was 14.2, and I caught one on the scale. They weighed it at the marina. It was 13.8. So I was kind of like you. I was interested in mangoes. When I go next year, I'm getting him.
Yeah,
I'm getting the
right.
state record. So I go into the marina. I ask him. I go, "Hey man, is that record still there?" "Oh yeah, somebody broke it." I go, "What's the weight on the?" He goes, "Well, somebody caught a 16-pound
Oh, my
mango."
God.
And I go, "Man, that's going to be hard to
That's-
beat." He
yeah.
said the next week or the next day, a guy caught an 18. So if you look it up right now, I believe that's what you're going to see, the state record. It could be a world record, mango snapper, 18 pounds. I've caught a 34-incher to me. And you know what I did with that one? I brought it here. Doug is Mr. Mango,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
Guy who works for me, Doug Westlake. I put it in the cooler because I didn't think pictures did it justice. I'm bringing that fish home. It was in one of those little igloos all the way across, 48 quart, I think. And I came in, and I always give fish away to
Yeah,
customers and,
right. I've had some of it.
employees. And I said, "Doug, take that down to Gandy Bait. Tell him you called it the Skyway." And of course, Doug couldn't wait to get
Oh,
down
yeah.
there. And back in the day, 15 years ago, Gandy Bait was a place to hang and tell your
was.
fish stories.
It was.
Hey, we got a break coming up. Appreciate all the good stories. I appreciate y'all tuning in, and we're going to have a bunch more. We'll see y'all shortly. We're back, little kitties, talking fishing. Thanks for hanging out. I got Seltzer with me. One of our customers, we're trying to get a mango spot off of him, but I don't know if he's going to tell us not. I've even offered Doug, hey, take me a picture. Do something for me.
I even
And,
wrapped my phone, the inside of my phone, with tinfoil, just in case there's some.
I noticed you
something-
don't ever bring. You always come in here and buy stuff, but you never bring your boat in for me to
No,
service.
no.
What's the deal with that?
Well, I'm maybe a little bit cheap. I'm pretty good at servicing it myself.
Oh,
So,
yeah.
And to be honest with you, I'd hate to have to remove both 12-inch machines.
That'd be a pain.
Yeah, so I just service it in my driveway.
So what kind of boat do you have?
I have a 25 CV. It's a 1981. Good friend of mine, God bless him, he's passed away, Alan Rosser. He and I found the hull in a salvage yard on the East Coast. We tracked it and traced it and went through a lot of stuff. We found the title. We tracked down who the title was. It was titled to. It was just a salvage at that point. We paid the gentleman, I think, $200 or $300 for the title. Picked up the hull, and when I say it was a shell, it was a shell. Unique.
Bad shape.
Yeah, I mean, it was just we did it from the ground up. Took us 3 years. Stringers, everything. It was orange. When the hull was was orange, and when I sanded the paint off, it said Thumper in cursive. And so I did some research. It was an old charter boat out of Key West.
Oh, wow.
A captain named, I Googled it, captain named Pat Hines, and I've tried to find out if he's still alive. Ran
That's
it.
pretty neat.
Yeah. There's old articles. If you Google 25 CV Thumper Key West or something like that, it'll show a fishing report. Captain Pat Hines took his client aboard the Thumper to the reef and caught yellowtail, and this. It was an inboard 25 CV, old school. Wonderful.
What if there was a bad story behind it?
Well, I can tell you this. I kept the name. That's why people, if they see the boat named Thumper, they wonder what the hell that guy named his boat Thumper for, because you don't change the name of a boat, is what I was always told, and I like it.
What if it was like Oba Chandler's boat?
Well, I can
You
tell you.
remember that name?
Yeah, I do. But I can tell you the only bad story I heard about it was when we were buying the title from the guy. He was an older guy. He lived up in Massachusetts. We tracked him down, did a lot of research. He told us that they used to run that boat to. No, I'm just telling you what he told
Oh,
you.
here we go.
They used
Tales
to-
from the dark side.
We're going on the dark side. He said they used to run that boat to Jamaica and pick up weed.
That's a long run.
It's a long
from Key
run,
West.
and I don't know. I mean, I have no reason to not believe him. I don't know if they got fuel along the way or what they did, or maybe they met him. But he said, basically, we ran a lot of Jamaican weed in that boat, and he was laughing.
Wow.
Here I am, a cop buying the title, going, but it is what it is.
Didn't bother you.
Didn't bother me.
I'll tell you something we got in common there. This transom that you're looking at,
Mm-hmm.
the back name of it's hanging out in the shop. It's called Southern Comfort, and I did the same thing. It's off an old Chris Craft. And I did some research, and I didn't really find a lot of paperwork on it, but I found some people that knew how it got to, it was that little fish, Cortez.
Oh, yeah,
It was in the
Cortez,
Cortez boat yard, and
Yeah.
I'd walked in one day, and I saw this transom. I've been looking for a transom 30 years. Of course, I found them connected to boats, but I just never had one cut off. And where this boat came from, it was down in the Keys in the 70s.
Oh yeah.
And it had been caught. I don't know if it was going to Jamaica or where it was
Yeah.
going, but in a lot of boats in the 70s and 80s.
It was the Wild West.
The history down
Yeah.
there, Everglades City and all
Yeah.
that stuff, the history of Florida. Well, they were running drugs with this boat, and they had caught it like 3 or 4 times, and finally the judge, after he'd done, they put the guy in jail, and he'd get
Yeah,
back out and
right.
do the same thing again. He said, "Where is this boat that's been caught 3 or 4 times?" And they're like, "Well, it's in a boatyard." And they said, "Cut it up." That was part of the
right,
deal was
yeah.
you need to cut it up, and somehow it got up into Cortez, probably on another boat running up into
Right.
Cortez in the 70s, but it was sitting there, and I was fortunate enough to get it, and I kept the name hanging in the back there just for
That's a cool story.
it's that gold
Yeah.
flake, and
Cortez is an old school fishing village.
yeah, great place, man.
It really is.
I know the Bells down there. My
Yeah,
dad knew
AP
AP Bell
Bell.
real good,
Yeah.
and spent some time in and out of that fish house buying fish, and I think he sold some there too. But
Oh yeah, the mullet guys sell a lot of fish to them, and I bought bait and ice there. That's one thing. I wish this area had some bulk ice. on the water. I think John's Pass does.
Yep, there's a commercial fish house. You can get it over there.
But that's one thing that this area is missing is a good old school fish house where you can go early in the morning and get some bulk ice.
Well, and what's happened to waterfront over the years.
Yeah,
it's
insane.
They've kind of tried to run the commercial industry out of here. Which is, in my opinion, not very healthy for the people in Tampa to look at just retail. It's like, I was talking to somebody else, the history behind this store and this whole area really has to do with the port. And it started with Fort Brooke, right? Right at the river, and it was a main place to come. This is a port town. Retail's never gonna be over the industry we have here in the port. Some people would rather have the baseball field and everything else down there in the shipyard, and they don't realize those shipyards are running, a lot of them 24 hours a day, and they employ a lot of people in this area, which is what drives the area.
They do, and every time I'm on the crosstown, I look down in there, they're busy. I mean, they've got boats from there. I just came on the way down here. There's one from, flagged in Singapore, and they're doing some work over there.
My buddy owns that one right by the crosstown there, international ship, George Lorton, great guy. And I drive to the radio show every Sunday, and I go down that, and I look over there, and when I see boats in there, I know I should be doing good. If they're got boats in, the whole industry should be good.
You know what? Ask him one day. I always wonder, how in the heck do they set the blocks knowing the design of the hull? I've always wondered how they get those boats on there, or ships on there, but they already have the preset blocks, the big wooden blocks that they're sitting on, how they're not damaging something. It's really interesting to me.
I would think, and I don't know this, and I will ask him, and
maybe the builder gives them paperwork or whatever.
I think they're going to have some kind of spec sheet. I don't think divers are sitting there sliding
it's filthy
them.
Water.
Be too dangerous.
But it's interesting because that dry dock is lifting those big, huge ships up, expensive ships. And it's got to be a very, accurate and precise process, or you could, damage.
Matter of fact, I'll talk to him one day. Maybe me and you can drive over there.
I'd love to go
if
over
he's
there.
setting one up and just actually watch him do it. He's got the biggest dry dock in the west coast of Florida right here.
Oh yeah, they drive their trucks out on it. It's very cool. If you go over there, I'll definitely go with you.
I was looking at, I thought, man, I could do a podcast from there, but I don't think he's going to stop people from working for me to do some kind of podcast.
And they're usually sandblasting loud and all that.
Got stuff hanging everywhere. But I love to see it. It's where this store was built, right across the street. And I enjoy being this close to the port and servicing them. Really good people down there, from Gulf Marine Repair to International Ship, all of them down there have been.
There's a whole side of Tampa that a lot of people,
it's the other side of that water,
don't even know about. Those are employed a lot of guys down there, a lot of good stuff going on.
Man, I was out there the other day, and I think, they got Coast Guard in Marjorie Park?
I think there's one boat. That's where the Tampa police boats are docked. They may have one Coast Guard boat there.
I had to run a boat the other day, and I'll tell you, tales from the dark side. I get out there, and it's getting dark, and I asked my buddy, trolling motor ain't working. He said, it was the last time I ran it. And I said, well, how about the lights? Are they working?
Oh, boy.
Sheriff's office passed me. It wasn't quite dark enough yet to turn my lights on. And he starts flipping switches, and he said, nothing's coming on? And I said, no. And when's the last time you ran it? He said, the last time I ran it was probably a year ago.
Oh, boy.
So I start working my way back to the ramp, and I was thinking that the no-wake zone was right there at Marjorie Park, which somebody told me, Doug told me it was a quarter mile past that, out the river.
It is.
So I took off a little bit too early. I'm telling on myself. And I took off running. There was a boat in front of me. I could see it, the seawall, that had no lights on. So I went around him. And by the time I got to Davis Island, there was blue lights on him. God. And I'm thinking, I got to get out of the boat. I'm not the driver. But I slid out on that one. They would have been all right. It wasn't quite dark yet.
Yeah.
And I was headed back to the ramp. But check those lights out if you're going out in the afternoon. Something I learned the other day.
Yeah.
Especially a buddy's boat.
Well, exactly. And I took mine out the other day because mine has sat longer, and lack of use is abuse for a boat. And mine sat long enough. Hunting season, my son asked me. I got 3 little boys, and my oldest asked me. He said, "Dad, I need to know, what do you like better, hunting or fishing?" And I said, I have thought about this forever. I said, but my final answer is hunting in the winter, fishing in the summer.
That's me.
That's my answer. And so my boat sat for too long, and I took it out the other day, and I'll tell you what I did. I went out in the middle of the bay by myself. I put my Rodan down. I have a Rodan on it. I put it down.
Is that because you don't know how to anchor?
No, it's because anchoring's a pain in the butt.
Oh,
That's
okay.
exactly why.
Just making sure.
And Doug's gained a little weight. Doug, sorry if you're
He
watching
doesn't have
this.
to pull the anchor.
Yeah, he
no
doesn't
more.
have to pull the anchor. It really is kind of a game changer for me. I'm not gonna elaborate on it, but when your Rodan's working, it's nice to park right on your spot. I like to chum fish. When I'm fishing, I want to be right on where I know, and I dive those spots, and I know actually where I need to put the boat. But I went out the other day and I turned on every light, every electronic, everything on my boat. I ran it. I even
Smart.
I ran my Rodan for several hours, just to exercise the batteries. And I looked at every single light just to make sure, so that the next time I go out, I don't have any excuse.
Right. And you're ready to go.
I'm ready to go. That's
Yeah.
it. That's what I want to be. I'm fairly anal about stuff like that. My trailer, I keep my hubs and everything in top notch. You've sold me more bearings and tires and
Making sure it's right.
yeah, no, it's got to be, or you end up looking like the guy that people take photographs of and puts on the internet on
That's
Qualified
right.
Captain or whatever it is.
A million people look at them and click on it.
Yeah.
It's pretty amazing, some of the boats you see in the summertime on the highway. You see a beautiful boat and tires blown out or
Oh,
hubs
yeah.
gone, and it's not really what they were thinking when they left that morning. And it's really the most vulnerable place you can be. You got to unhook
Oh yeah.
and leave everything you got in that boat for people to pillage through it.
Well, and a buddy of mine told me one time, and it rings true when it comes to fishing and diving, spearfishing. 2 is 1, 1 is none, and that's the way I look at it for spare tires. And
Oh, yeah.
I have my own impact gun.
You're
you know.
ready.
Yeah, I mean,
And most likely nothing happens.
right.
Because you're
Right.
ready. And that's the same thing. We go to Louisiana, we'll take 2 or 3 spares
Yeah,
with us.
absolutely.
So you do some hunting. What kind of hunting did you do this year?
I did it. This year was one of my better hunting years. I drew I don't want to call it a draw, but because it's a strange the way Idaho does it. But I got a over the counter, but there's only limited. It's a limited tag, and I was lucky enough to get one for a unit in Idaho, public land, no guide. Met a buddy of mine out there who's a absolute mountaineer, wonderful guy, lives out there. And we hunted the Sawtooth Mountains for mule deer, and it was brutal. Reward colder. We got caught in the big storm. It was last October. It was the blizzard.
Yeah.
It was when the blizzard came
Yep.
through. It was October 16th, I believe. Everything froze. My Camelback, my iPhone, everything. And we camped, hunted public land. We went way back, way high. I was in good shape. My buddy, we spotted some good mule deer. We didn't see that many mule deer, but the ones we spotted were good. My buddy got a really, really great one. I got one. I'm still proud of it, very proud of it, because you kill anything in the conditions, and as hard as we hunted.
And to camp out there?
Let me tell you.
Yeah.
Let me tell you what.
That ain't for me.
We froze. But I'm going to tell you what. I drove out there. I drove back. I drove through 16 states. I visited my family. I stopped in Texas, made mule deer backstrap steaks for them.
It's a week drive, isn't it, to Idaho?
Well, it depends, but it was 4 days. I mean,
Yeah.
it was
solid drive
solid,
in
yeah.
4 days.
And it was right near Ketchum, Idaho, real ritzy almost town, but beautiful. So I did that. Hunted my place in Alabama where I hunt, just south of Montgomery. Killed a good number of deer in Alabama. Had a good year in Alabama. Missed a giant buck. I hadn't missed in forever, and I almost knew I was just due for some type of screw up.
And you're telling yourself
I
this
am.
as you're looking at him.
Well,
you know?
the good thing is I know he's alive because my buddy saw him, again, but I killed probably seven whitetail this year. I didn't go over my limit for the wannabe game wardens that maybe listen. It's a doe a day in Alabama, $3. I killed 2 bucks and the rest does. My little boy killed one. Got some good venison. Had a great year. I mean, had a wonderful year. This year I'm going buffalo hunting in
Awesome.
in North Dakota, and I'm preface it. It's not a buffalo hunt. It's more of a buffalo harvest.
Right.
But
Going for the meat.
Going for the meat. That's what I love. I absolutely love fishing for the meat. I love hunting for the meat, and I love the process. I'm almost, maybe my family almost calls me psycho. I love the process of harvesting your meat, from the point to it
Absolutely.
being alive to the point to you're preparing it with a glass of wine and a chopping board in the kitchen, and I'm cutting up steaks. It's just, that's everything to me, whether it's fish.
Well, you know where it came from. You know how
Yeah.
it was harvested. You know how it was processed.
Yeah.
Some of the processors we go to, and you know this with deer, you don't want to go to the guy busiest in
Yeah.
town because you're probably not going to get the exact deer.
Oh yeah, I've
You
had
know,
that happen. I hunted in.
I deal with Rick's, and I'm telling you, I've never had an issue.
Yeah, Rick's is excellent.
Jam Up out there in Lithia does a great job with alligators, does a great job with deer, whatever
Yep.
you need out there.
Yeah, he does. He
You
does
gotta, the whole thing is the way it's processed. First time I ever ate deer, it was like eating this alligator hide.
Yeah,
It was terrible.
yeah,
And I didn't eat deer for another 5 or 6 years. I started hunting with a processor. He started showing me different cuts, and about taking care of them just like we do
Yeah.
fish. You
Yeah.
catch a fish on my boat, you don't throw it on the deck and rebait.
right.
You put it in ice covered,
Yep.
cut his throat if that's what you're going to do, and then back into the water.
And I'm big
again.
into making a brine, and
Yeah, absolutely.
I love all that. And really the only thing I process a lot. I eat every heart out of every deer. I started eating the liver
That's
out of the deer.
nasty.
No,
I've had. Well, you like liver.
yeah, I like liver.
Yeah. To me, I'm not a big liver
Well,
guy.
it's
so
earthy and it's hard, but let me tell you what, it's a superfood.
Tastes like
It's healthy.
mercury.
Well, to me, it tastes like if you ground up a black iron skillet and ate
Yeah.
it. It's just iron.
I've had it, and I can clean them. I know how to take the valves out.
Deer, venison, liver. It's actually some of the better liver. It tastes better than
I
beef
usually
liver.
shoot them in the gut, so I can't recover them.
You have a trail of
Yeah.
corn or whatever.
It's usually not
I
good.
love some of these guys that hunting when the baiting was illegal, and you go out and help them track the deer, and there's corn on the ground.
Yeah,
But
I've got some stories about that too.
oh yeah, but no, I had a great year. I mean, I'm so thankful now, and it's almost it's special to me. I'm driving back from my last hunt in Alabama, and my brain literally switches. It's time to fish. That's what I'm telling you. I'm already excited about getting my boat ready, and I'm going to stock up on. I'm going to tell Doug to order. Doug ordered me glass minnows. I buy all my chum from you guys, and really just about everything that helps me catch fish I buy here, and I'm going to tell Doug, go ahead and get some glass minnows, because I don't know how many of your customers actually use glass minnows, and to be honest with you, hopefully not a ton. Maybe that's still my secret.
Well, most people, when they go fishing, I was talking to a guy earlier today, most people go out and catch a handful of fish and they're happy.
Yeah,
Which sardines would be fine.
it will. Right.
With mangoes. You can still get 20, 30 fish
Right.
with sardines, but trying to get that limit,
Yeah.
doing something a little extra, sometimes it takes that. Hogfish, I've heard, rock shrimp.
Yeah.
And I get them right down here on the docks from Superior. I know Ernie over there, and
Yeah,
when
there
he
are some
gets 'em, he
guys
calls me.
that have the hogfish fishery really dialed in. I never have. I've caught some, but I like diving so much. I'd rather spear. I'd like to spear a couple of male hogs and be done with it. Hogfish is good meat to me. I like mangrove.
Excellent.
I like mangrove better. Mangrove to me is more. Maybe it's a little gamier. I don't know. Hogfish has almost no bloodline, and it's great meat. I mean, I love it. But
You cut the bloodline out of the mangoes?
I do usually. Yeah,
Just a
I do.
V and cut it out?
Well, it depends. I'm a big. You know what on the half shell is like they do. I
Absolutely.
cook most of my mangrove on the half shell.
Well, explain what that is.
Well, you just basically fillet it, but you don't fillet the skin off the meat. And I keep the scales and everything, and I wipe the scales clean. I never ever let my fish of my meat touch fresh water. I mean, I don't, if it gets dirty, I'll dip it in salt water. Now, the only thing I'll say, I mean, if I'm just about to cook it and maybe there's something on it, I may run it under the sink for a second, but I'm very particular. I do not let it touch fresh water. So I fillet a big mangrove fillet, and then I put the meat side up. I never cook it meat side down, and I season the top. I usually put some coconut oil, olive oil, whatever you like. My idea isn't the best. Put some Everglades seasoning, garlic powder, whatever you want. I don't overdo it on top. I don't put mayonnaise. I don't put anything too harsh. And I bake it at 325 with the skin and scales down. And when you take that meat up off, you can pluck it out
Rake it off.
Yeah, well, you can pluck it out with a fork, and you look down in there. There's literally juices. It's so
The oil,
moist.
yeah.
And it, to me, that is the best way for mangrove snapper. And I've done red snapper. You can't do gag like that because the skin and scales are so different.
Skin's different, right? Redfish, you can do like that?
Redfish. I mean, that's the way redfish is done a lot of times in Louisiana.
That's where we learned it.
And but that's one of my favorite ways. I love cooking fish. I love cooking venison.
You know what I like? We use, back in talking about Louisiana again, we kind of eat what we catch there.
Yeah, right.
Saves on the bill, of course, and
Yeah.
you eat what you want,
Right.
you know, fresh.
That's what Louisiana is. I mean,
Yeah.
it's the harvesting capital of,
Yeah.
frog legs, crabs,
Whatever.
everything. Yeah.
Voodoo, whatever you want, it's
Right.
got it.
I love it.
But we use mayonnaise, and
Yeah.
what happens, I use it in my lobster tail too. What happens is anything flavoring of the mayonnaise is gone.
Yeah, right.
Pretty much
it's
just
more of an
the
oil
oil.
base, right? Yeah.
One time we're in the Chaz, and
Mm-hmm.
we were fishing with my buddy Captain Al up there, caught redfish, and we said, yeah, let's redfish on the half shell.
Mm-hmm.
We had no mayonnaise. You know, you're up there off the grid.
Yeah,
you don't
right.
have, but we had that Chick-fil-A sauce.
Oh yeah.
We put that on there, and
I
I'm
bet.
telling you, try it.
Oh,
Try
I'm
it.
not against the mayonnaise. I've had it, and Doug's done it, but I like it simple. On the half shell, and that's how my kids like it. And
That's
I've used
awesome,
mayonnaise
man.
on lobster too. I love doing it all. I love experimenting.
Yeah, especially when you catch so many of them, you find the best way to do it.
Find the best.
It's kind
way
of hard
do
to
it.
even go out to a restaurant and eat fish.
It
isn't
is. Oh, I don't. I really don't.
Shrimp, maybe.
Salmon.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't catch salmon. The only thing I buy is what I can't harvest myself. So I buy very little beef, but there's times where I don't care what I kill. I'm going to get a big ribeye. I
Yeah.
love a good steak. But yeah, I don't buy any seafood. No offense to the commercial guys selling it, but by golly, if I can catch it, I'm
Why
doing
not?
it. Yeah, I'm
Fresh,
doing
the
it.
same way with the deer meat. You know, if you
Exactly.
can- I just had a bunch of burger ground up, and I'm
Yeah.
looking forward to it.
I
Always good.
generally only get my burger processed. I do all my own back straps. Sometimes I do the neck meat. I'll make a roast out of the neck meat, and some of the hams. I'll slice, make jerky or whatever. But yeah, Rick, I've taken it to Rick's. I've taken it to Al's, and I've had good luck.
Yeah, man, it's good stuff when you take care of it. That's for sure. It reminds me of my buddy Buzzard Bruce. When he cleans a deer, you'll know why we call him a buzzard. There is
Ain't a piece
nothing
of meat.
left.
Buzzards turn their nose at the
Everything is grind.
carcass. Yeah.
If there's any red, we need that for grind. Don't
Well,
get rid of it.
I respect that.
Yeah.
I mean,
He-
that's
Wisconsin.
the best respect you can have for the animal also. I mean,
That's right.
if I catch a big gag, I'm eating the throat. I'm eating the cheeks.
Yeah.
My dad, before anybody even knew about it, my dad was eating red snapper throats. And I love a red snapper throat.
Yeah, there's an art to cutting them
Oh,
out.
yeah,
You
yeah.
got to pull the trigger up and cut
Yeah.
right behind it. And a lot of fish have those. I've eaten snook throats back when
Oh,
you
yeah.
can keep the
I love snook
the
too.
big ones, but
Yeah.
doesn't work too good on a 30-incher. It's not as good.
Well, you know what's funny? I was thinking when you were talking about these big mangroves, I like catching mangroves big enough to where you have to check that roof patch to see if it's actually a cabera.
Yeah.
And they do look different. I've gotten some caberas out here. I speared a 30-pound cabera. I'll tell you where
That's
I
a
speared
good
it at the mitigation site, the 117-foot mitigation site. I went down there diving, saw a huge school of gags, and followed them down and shot a 30-pound cabero. So there's cabero sitting on the mitigation sites, you know.
Yeah, there's a wreck out there, and you're probably aware of it. I think it's to the south some. It's the Banana.
Yeah, I've heard of it.
The neighbor down in Anna Maria, I think a couple of years ago, and it's around that 120, 130, I believe.
That's kind of one of my favorite areas to fish.
They got a 50 or 60 pounder, just a real.
Well, they
big
live
one.
inside those wrecks.
Yeah,
and they're
They
there.
love it. And hard to get out. I can tell you, it's a good. I've never caught one, but I've
Yeah.
seen them caught.
Yeah, they're wily.
Well, I appreciate you coming out and talking with us today, man.
I
I've had a
enjoyed
great
it.
time.
I did too. I really enjoyed it. Thanks for having me. I'll come back anytime. I love talking fishing, hunting, harvesting, cooking, and I love your store. I love what you guys do here. You guys got first class Doug. Doug's
Yeah,
one of my
man.
favorite guys, and I appreciate what y'all do.
It's hard to deal with him. When you say Doug's your favorite guy, boy, you're a little bit different person to be able to deal with that one.
Yeah, the next
He's a great guy, though. You're exactly right.
Listen, everybody knows. Somebody who's listening will say, yep, that guy. If Doug can't find it for you in one of those dadgum catalogs or whatever, I mean, I can say, Doug, where's this? They say, oh, it's over there. I mean, he does know
He's
this
on it.
store. He's on it. I'll give him that.
But he don't give up no fishing spots. That's the bad thing about
I respect
Doug.
that.
I've tried bribing him and everything else. Well, Seltzer, I appreciate you coming out today. Remember, one of Tampa's finest. If he pulls you over, just have a Mahoney shirt on. I guarantee he's going to let you go.
And
maybe.
And I'll tell you what else. If you do get pulled over, most of Tampa Police Department, we like the city of Tampa. Just be courteous and a nice person.
Absolutely.
And you won't. I don't write tickets to people unless it's so bad that they
Yeah.
absolutely need it. You know, most of my Tampa police colleagues are 100% professionals.
Yep, everybody I deal with. And why I wanted him to come out, there's a lot of people out there in the industry that are good fishermen. There's a lot of people that y'all will never hear their name. This is one of them. He's a great fisherman. I've seen it. I've seen the pictures. I've heard him talk. He gets on fish. A great guy, works for TPD. They keep us safe, and I appreciate everything, man.
Hey, and I appreciate you bringing me on. There's lots of guys out there catching good fish, and it's just what I love to do. And I love seeing and helping guys that want to bring their family. I love seeing
That's
kids
the
catch
best.
fish. So keep it up, and I appreciate you having me.
All right, we'll see y'all next time.